Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. We've been off of it because we've been doing some reruns. Bottom line is we're back. There's a lot of issues that are on the table at this point in time, and we're going to jump right at it. You know, normally we'll probably start off with the national standpoint. The only thing I'll say from a national standpoint, real quick, is that I grew up in Houston, Texas, and let me tell you something. There was all kinds of water pipe bursting all over the place, and I mean, it was really heavy at that point. And all I'm saying, I called them up early enough and said, look, all you do is just cut the water on when they gave you the alert. No problem. The bottom line, that's happened. We got to deal with that point. Sheila Jackson Lee is on the job at this point in time. But what we're going to do today is that we're going to come home. We got some major issues to deal with. And we got hit pretty hard ourselves. But guess what? The people who hit hard as far as lives are concerned were the folks that are outside, the homeless folks. And we're going to focus on what happened to these homeless folks in this point in time. There was an interesting article in Street Roots here in Portland, and they featured Dan Ryan. And Dan Ryan was talking about the whole issue of homelessness, et cetera, along that particular line. But it was kind of like in a venue. I thought it was kind of interesting piece. It was a venue where he spoke before the city council and basically identified, if you will, his main lane meaning that his focus. And the whole issue of homelessness was that. And so we talked about that. And that when you start thinking about homelessness, you talk about a roof over their head and this, that, and another, and then that's real estate and this, that, and another. So we can have a heck of a discussion and talking to that whole issue of discussion. We got a heck of a panel tonight. We got Fred Stewart, and then we got his brother Bob Williams. I mean, awesome. And we got Dwight. We got Dwight Minnieweather. Dwight, basically, that's what he's been dealing with, the homeless people. I mean, he's on the ground. He's actually touching them back and forth. And I say this to say again, and I'm throwing this out, and Bob and Fred would know this. And remember Dan got his house all whatever, deck or whatever, hitting hard and whatever. The bottom line, he was out of his lane. He was talking about police. He was the one that basically voted. He voted initially for police reform when Joanne Hardesty endorsed him, if you will, for city council race. But then he changed his idea that he basically went against it, and then basically he got this other thing. But he's in his right lane now, as far as I'm concerned, with homelessness. Other folks might have some other different ideas, but we'll go through that. But let's get this thing started right now. We've got so much time we have, and then after we take a 30-minute break, we'll just get right back up into it, and we have time left. We'll talk a little bit about the national stuff. I know these guys are anxious to talk about the national stuff a little bit. So again, guys, welcome Fred Stewart, Bob Williams, and Dwight Minnieweather, pastor, if you will, the man on the street. If anybody knows homelessness, folks on the street is Dwight. If anybody knows real estate, is Fred. If anybody knows community, is Bob. And this is Black History Month, folks. This is Black History Month. And right up front, a lot of people don't really understand, and I think if we spoke more of it and this, that, and other, I think that would really help the so-called simulation, if you will, of us as a group. We're a small group here in the state of Oregon, but it's very important that you understand what the definition is. So we're just going to get right up into this situation, and I'm going to just jump right on the deal and say, we'll start off with Dwight. What about the homeless on the streets with the whole situation with the pandemic and with the whole weather situation? What did you see on the street? Go on.
Yeah. Well, we were out Friday morning during the time that the first initial part of the storm was coming. We were out Friday morning passing out tents and tarps and blankets and all kind of sweatsuits and coats, trying to make sure that they were prepared through that time. And it was just really dreadful to be out there to see the conditions, to have this winter shelter and access for them to be able to come off of the streets and have an opportunity And, then I went back through after the storm, checking on, see if we lost anybody, because, that was a very cold period of time. And, I had to go back through to make sure all the people we serviced over in that area made it through the storm. And by God and the grace of God, they did. They all made it through. And it was good to see the people and know that they were able to make it through by the grace of God. But I still know that the city and people of Portland, we have some work to do to help that population of people.
Okay, Fred, like I say, you guys just going on give a little brief introduction, and then we'll get in our own, we'll get in the exchanges back and forth with me. Fred, what do you think about as far as the homeless problem? In all due respect, there's a lot of buildings out there, new buildings, high rise, whatever. Those places are still empty and whatever. Why couldn't we use some of those spots up there? Maybe the lower floor or something like that. Any ideas about that? Why aren't they using those facilities?
Well, it's the population of the homeless that it makes it complicated. It makes it very complicated because from a management standpoint, makes it very complicated from an insurance standpoint. Like I was pointing out to a friend of mine about an hour ago who was saying something very similar. I said, so a property owner, whether it be the city, county, or whatever, lets a bunch of homeless people come into their property to keep warm. That's a very nice gesture. But, you got to remember, inside that population, you got people who got mental illness. You got people who got psychiatric and emotional issues. You got sex offenders. You got a little bit of everything. And you just got regular, normal, everyday people. Well, let's say one of those sex offenders rapes one of the people who is just normal, everyday people who are down in their luck. Guess who gets sued? The property owner. There is no way to protect the property owner from being held accountable. So you say, well, that's bad, and it is bad, but that's true. So the property owner has to keep that in mind, that they are on the hook for that. Now, they can hire security and management to manage it, but who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for quality management? And I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but these are hurdles that need to be overcome. And you can't just automatically assume, since somebody's got a building, that they should just open it up out of the benevolence of their heart, because I've seen people be very nice with their real estate and end up losing their real estate for being very nice. Very nice people. But, because somebody decided to do something irresponsible or whatever, the family says, well, you shouldn't have been nice and let my family on your property. And when you did, they got hurt. So now give me everything you got.
Oh my God.
That's life.
Okay,
and that's what a lot of people on this issue don't pay attention to is, there's a reason why people are homeless. I ain't saying they're bad people. I'm not saying just because you're a homeless person makes you a bad person, but there's reasons for it. And none of those reasons are good. But then they all make you a high-risk individual to work with. And that's why it's important that the government develops policies and procedures and has programs to step in and take some of that risk off, that burden off the public. But it can only go so far. And that's why I tell people we need law enforcement heavily involved with homeless people, because we don't need to help criminals. Criminals need to feel that Portland's not a place to go. You're a registered sex offender, you're going to go to jail and you're going to suffer. You're a drug dealer, you are a violent person, you don't want to be in Portland, you're going to suffer. But if you're a person down in your luck, a person who's disabled, people go through times. You know what I mean? They need a little help up sometimes. If you're that type of person, we got to get ourselves in a position where those people feel that they can count on their community, because they should. But we've got a very big problem with the overall population, the mixture of the population of homeless people.
I know you would probably mention vets too, right? You'd also.
Well, yeah, but even with vets, you got vets who've got emotional issues, PTSD. Then you got the disabled part. There's a big difference. I'm a family that has a lot of military vets in it, and we had to deal with a lot of PTSD. And I know what it's like for some people to go through PTSD, or I should say have it and not have the right support. There's a risk involved in dealing with those people. I ain't saying that we shouldn't deal with them, but you can't expect private property people to put their fortunes on the line. You know what I mean? You can't. Mm-hmm. If somebody works hard, develops a fortune, buys properties, they're doing that for themselves and their family. Their family and themselves come before a homeless person. And if they're gonna engage with homeless people, there needs to be systems put into place to take some of the burden off of them. You know what I mean? Maybe since everything's an emergency, maybe the governor can come in and say, look, anybody who comes in and donates a property to be used for homelessness, they can't be sued. If something happens that they're not a part of, in other words, they didn't commit an act or anything like that, they can't be sued. Nothing. You know what I mean? Maybe they can offer some protection. This is where I tell people what pisses me off about Democrats. Is Democrats that we vote for do not come in and problem solve. You know what I mean? They come in and they, throw out issues. They deal with issues, but they don't deal with problems in those issues. And these are one of the reasons why we can't fix the problem. Like I was telling people, we need housing like you wouldn't believe that cost no more than $500 a month, period. Because of the population of people that we've got people who can't afford that much, no more than 500.
Mm-hmm.
And we could do that in this town, in this state, if we wanted to, if we had Democrats that wanted to do that, but we don't. We don't have, this is how bad things are for the people of Oregon who aren't rich. The Republicans, they are, hey, I'll take care of myself, you take care of yourself. You know what I mean? And the Democrats are, I'll take care of you, but really they do nothing.
Good point.
Absolute failures. So the average Joe who's going through a tough time, they are literally, they have nobody. They don't have Republicans or Democrats. They don't have anybody.
Well, let's bring the Democrat in the picture right now. Bob, how you doing? What do you say about that?
I'm listening. Really and truly on the homeless, I felt like I was homeless for the last 6 days.
Right.
With my electricity out, but thank God, not only I had a place over my head,
right.
And I began to realize just how selfish we as people are, me included, because, you walk past a homeless person on the street and you look at them, and eventually that guy on the side that's trying to get $1 from you on the freeway entrance, that homeless person out there, they become just like a house you pass on by. You turn your head so you don't see them and things of this nature. And that's not a party, that's the people. And that's the thing that I'm preaching in this, and today, is that it's not about a Democrat or a Republican, it's about people. And we as people have got to change our id. We have to change how we think about others. Because someone is down in their luck, don't mean that you just ignore them. But you can't, this is America. And this is not a land where everyone comes together and sing kumbaya to help everyone up. This people that gets to the top want to stay on top by not paying attention to what's going on the bottom, or putting a buffer between them of those. We have the poor, we have the working class. They named us that for a reason. That's the buffer, that working class. They're trying to get to the top, and they are the ones that can keep those others down. So we have to understand that name calling does not get us anything other than someone that say the hell with you. That's all it gets. We have to try and come together and hold those people like a Ted Cruz and others that say, hey, Texas is under a snowstorm and pipes are bursting and there's no food on the shelf. I'm taking my kids and I'm going to Mexico. He's supposed to be there trying to help solve the situation. Instead, he takes off and go where he wants to go. We can no longer afford to name call in Portland. I can't walk out or go to the freeway and head north or south without seeing homeless people. I can't go down any street in Portland and not see homeless people. It means something. Now, I don't expect that guy that owns a building over there to put everything that he's worked for on the line, like Fred said, in order to take care of them. But guess what? Imagine what would happen to the homeless if we had everybody in Oregon can afford $1. Now, each month we donate $1. That's $12 a year. Just think if we could get everybody to work that way and do, and all that money goes to, not to pay someone, to help to eliminate homelessness. Look at what we have just done. That's all it takes.
Great idea, but that's only $48 million a year. And though that's a lot of money, that is a lot of money. That's not enough to fix something like this.
How much do we have now?
We have
Zero.
about 50, we have about 50 million that the state.
Then that would make 98 million. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, no,
you're adding two. We can't solve the whole thing overnight. We didn't get into this situation overnight. We got to start somewhere, and that's the problem. Everyone wants to come up with an excuse why not. Let's come up with a reason why.
But Bob, this is the only reason I'm correcting you on this. That $48 million, we would probably not collect 20 million of it. You got to remember, the state's got to have an instrument to collect that money from people, and it gets very expensive. That would be a very expensive tax to collect in the state, and that would I'm not asking for a tax.
I'm asking for a donation.
Well, yeah, but you can't force anybody to donate, and there's only 4 million people in the state. So that's what I'm trying to say. You're probably not even going to get 20 million, and you're probably.
Let me ask. Brother Menifee, with 20 million help?
No, I said you're probably not going to get that much.
With 10 million help? With 5 million help?
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm talking about.
Bob, I'm talking about solving the problem. And there's other things that we've got to do. We've got to maybe look at doing things like a transfer tax on title, on real estate. That would probably raise 200 or 300 billion a year. If you just did 1%. Or something like that. There's a lot of other things we can do, and we've got to have a direct goal with set dates attached to it. In other words, we got to say, look, in 10 years, we don't want anybody in Oregon that's lived here, let's say 36 months or longer, homeless. If they've been here 36 months or longer, or were born here, we will, when one way or another, either offer affordable housing or subsidized housing. There's something for them. Okay, and then we got to understand that we've got a lot of mental health people who will never be able to afford a market rate place to live. It will
Answer
never
a question
happen.
for me. Where in Portland, Oregon, would you put subsidized housing?
Well, we're going to have a great opportunity we got a great opportunity right now with Lloyd Center coming up. We got Eastport Plaza that has got more land than it needs. We've got our malls, our old malls.
Called prime property?
Well, they're not prime like they used to be because of technology. They used to be prime under the old way of doing business, and they're still prime locations, but we don't need that much land. In other words, Lloyd Center we're going to have retail in the Lloyd Center district forever, but we don't even need, 5 years from now, I doubt we're going to need 10% of of that mall that's there right now. We won't need 10% of that for commercial.
Okay.
So most of that should be turned into residential, and you can put some subsidized housing there. Same thing for Eastport Plaza. Eastport Plaza is another issue. Then we've got all of this opportunity along 82nd. Southeast and Northeast 82nd has large sections of land. Sometimes it goes in as much as 300 feet deep that can be utilized for more housing development. And we can put a mixture of affordable housing and subsidized housing. And then we need some temporary, like SRO housing, like the old YMCA. We don't have housing with somebody, gets in an argument with their wife or husband or whatever. They break up.
Just right quick, you know what we call that in Chicago? Subsidized housing became projects. And projects became, wait a minute, and projects became slums. Why? Because you can take that person and put them in that nice subsidized housing that you're talking about, and they're not used to being there, and it's going to become rundown tenements.
No,
And
when I say subsidized housing,
have to do some other things prior to putting people
no.
housing.
When I say subsidized housing, I'm talking about people who've already got jobs. I'm not talking about welfare housing.
But
I'm not talking about.
Let him get through, Bob. Let him get through, Bob. Let him get through.
I'm talking about people who, let's say, are making $20 an hour, family of 4, and they can't afford current market rate. We're going to have a system where they can have some subsidized housing from the state, where maybe $200 or $300 or $400 bucks of their rent is subsidized by the state, not the landlord, but by the state. Because we've got people legitimately working 40 hours a week, 20 hours a day. I mean, 20 hours to $20 per hour, 40 hours a week, who cannot afford market rate real estate. And the reason why you say, well, Fred, why can't they? They can't compete right now. They can't compete with people who are, let's say, more skilled or more educated. I mean, I'm not bragging, guys, at all, okay? But I'm a real estate broker, and I'm sitting here in this laptop that I'm talking with you on, and today I cut a deal where I'm going to make $20,000.
There you go.
Okay? Well, there's a lot of people out there like me. They don't necessarily do real estate. They do other things. They're in the freight business, the high-tech business. They're in jobs that did not exist the day I graduated from high school. You understand? And they're able to afford these market rate. How does somebody who works in a restaurant, somebody who's an office worker, a clerical, even a person who's a CNA or a phlebotomist or medical assistant, how do they afford to compete with paying for rental housing when they're competing against people like me who make money like I do? You get my meaning? And there's a lot of it. So when I say subsidized housing, the program of subsidized housing I'm talking about is not for people who are on welfare. It's not for people who are getting food stamps, even though that we may have to do that one day. I'm talking about people who are what I call the classic modern day 21st century working poor. Because we got people out there who are making $20 an hour. And think about the people who make less, who are having a hard time covering their bills because their space costs so much.
Okay, guys, I'm going to cut it off at this point in time, but we're going to go on and take a break. And I want Dwight to go on and close on this piece. Dwight, you've been listening to the discussion like I have. You out there on the streets and whatever. Do you see people that are working, for instance, basically not having a tougher time like the average person? What is the average person sitting out there, do you think, living out there in the streets of real in the whole issue of homelessness? You think would be capable of dealing with issues like Bob and Fred have said? What do you think?
Well, I think that the difficult part is the value of the trust factor of the property owners being able to allow us to utilize space. And that's what's hard for the people that are out there. It's just that stigma of where they are and where they're from is following them as far as who's deciding to help and who wants to take a chance. And if our state or city or government is even looking at making it easier for people to open and access their properties for people to be able to utilize. But just like what they said, it is truly to the facts that, the situation is, where's the money going to come from? Who's going to be able to make sure that the property owners are protected so they can open up with the loving kindness? I myself, I've done it myself, just like Fred said. I brought some people to my home, which is a very difficult thing to do when you meet somebody and bring them from the streets to your house. And I've done that before. And like you said, there was liability issues. I was taking chances, and for sure, and that was the benevolence of my heart. But at the same time, I realized that there could have been things they could have did. They could have stayed. They could have never left. There was a lot of issues I was putting myself on trying to do that. But
they could have slipped in the bath.
Yeah,
they could have slipped in the bathtub and said.
I agree with Fred totally. I wouldn't have been able to handle that bill. I sure wouldn't have been able to handle that bill if they would have slipped, or if they would have fell and tried to sue me. I sure wouldn't have been able to financially cover that. But my heart, and I know a lot of hearts are in the place of wanting to be able to help and extend some things. But we gotta do like what Fred said. Got to make some moves around so we can put some protection for those people who have the heart and the desire to reach out to that community, because it is a rough space for them to be in. And there's some good people out there.
You know,
Mentioned about the fact about the kind of monies that are actually coming from government, if you will, now. Do you see the monies being spent out there on the street, and you feel that they are actually spending the money, if you will, to try to improve the homeless situation? Right?
Of course not. Of course, that money is obviously going to places that are not benefiting those that are out there. Because I'm out there, I'm watching nothing happen. So if there's funding and there's money, and it's came, then what is the issue? And why would I stand out there every Friday morning, like in the morning when I go with everything that I take out there? I'm like, well, if there's funding, if there's new money here, who's managing it? Where's it going? And I heard about some hotels that were being used, that were mismanaged and misused. And I was like, well, I don't know. But like he said again, if that money's there and it's available, they might want to assess who they're giving it to.
Okay. Do you see what about other social entities like yourself that are providing services? Do you see many of those out there?
Oh, no, it's not many. Like I said, at this time, it's getting very scarce with the teams coming out, especially with the COVID information and the fear that they have contacting, which should be the COVID community, because they don't clean their hands, they don't have sanitizer, they don't have everything to be a safe community. So when you take that opportunity to go out there, you're risking a lot of your own personal space with, being able to contact COVID or something of that nature. But yeah, it's really weird out here. I'm just trying to figure out, myself, is where's this money going, who's getting it, and why aren't those people making it to the areas that are all over the city of Portland that need it?
Okay. Fred and our Bob, again, we read about this stuff all the time about the amount of kind of monies, if you will, government is getting, if you will. But the bottom line is that when you kind of ask the question, where is the money going? Or people like Dwight here, who's actually doing the work on the ground, and he's on the ground and he doesn't see the monies. And you hear this stuff about masking and wiping and washing your hand and all this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, there's no fountains out there, there's no water there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what do we say about that with reference to government? Well, look like we're gonna have to take a break, and let's start right there, okay? We'll start right at this point when we come back, and we'll start off with you, Bob. Okay? All right. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back, folks. This has been just great. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. Check out the next second half. Okay? Take a short break. Okay? Bye. Welcome back, folks, to the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Broussard, your host, and as you can see, my guest panel are right there. We had quite a discussion on the first half. If you missed it, hey, you can get it on a repeat, if you will, and that's pretty well laid out for you on the screen. Again, I've got Bob Williams here, and I got Dwight Minnieweather, and we got Fred Stewart, and right in front, and then Steve's in the background doing all the work. Okay, so anyway, let's just get right back into the deal. We were kind of like discussing just where is the money. Bob made the point about picking up $1 per person throughout the state of Oregon. He came up with about $12 million, something like that. And so now we've got a situation with that $12 million. Bob, will tell you straight up, you said that was for the state. And naturally, everybody in the state's going to want that piece. So that I would have to go along with Fred, because by the time you get down to what you're going to get here in the Portland area, maybe 10 million, if that, then you got to get administration money out of that. After they get through taking that top, you might end up with about $4 or $5 million. With the whole idea of the city and the county and everybody get their piece. Even the United Way might get a piece of the action. You never know. So anyway, good. So where do we want to go from there? Bob, who do I say? Who I said started? Who I said? Bob, you started out with that money deal. Where are you going to get the money?
See, what I was talking about with the money was not to buy a house, because you can put a person in a house, they don't realize what comes along with that. You have to be somewhat financially stable in order to own a home. Just because you can get a loan, don't mean that you're going to keep the upkeep of that house.
Well, can Fred answer that for you?
Am I right or wrong?
Buying a house either. I was looking at something where, be fixed structure investment. That means the county or the state would own the property, or maybe it'd be a contract with a property owner, and basically it would be, you're paying lease payments, but then you got management costs, and you got a lot of other costs
That's right.
that people don't think about, and it would eat up so much. That's what I mean. You got to break down. You got to approach the housing problem in more than one direction, and that's why subsidized housing, not for people on Section 8. I'm not talking about Section 8 or HUD housing. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about people who are We've got a group of people out there who are being priced out of Multnomah County.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to happen in Clackamas County in about 10 years.
It's going to be long. It's not going to take that long, Fred.
It might not happen in Washington County only because that is center in Oregon. And homeless people won't be needed out there because, everybody's got a job will need that land. But Multnomah County and Clackamas County, and maybe Marion County, they're looking bullseye at some major housing issues. We've got a housing shortage in each one of those counties. That's why you hear me on Facebook saying I want to twist the heads of a lot of wealth haters out there and people who've gotten involved in our governments to make it harder to build more housing. We're in the lowest interest rate environment in American history. We've never had low interest rates and high loan to values like this. The last time we had interest rates this low, you could only get a mortgage at a bank or your father, and banks loaned no higher than 35%. Average was about 20%. That means you had to come up with the rest instead of the reverse right now. So we didn't have as many people who, even though the interest rates were 2%, they couldn't afford to buy a $10,000 house because they didn't have $8,000 to put down. You get my meaning?
Mm-hmm.
So today it's the reverse. You can buy an $8,000 house. Well, there's no $8,000 house. You can buy, let's say, a $400,000 house for as little as 3.5% down. Okay? And the interest rate's 2%. Well, the last time this happened, you didn't have single women able to do that. You didn't have anybody black able to do that. You didn't have Hispanics able to do that. Most Asian people couldn't do it. And you could only go through banks. So where we're at right now is this is the lowest interest rate environment with the highest loan to value and the most market share that could potentially buy. And guess what we've got going on in the Northwest in Portland, Oregon? We've got policies that are so screwed up, it is impossible to build a spec home anymore and make money. The only people who are building homes right now are custom homes, and those are the most expensive homes in the market. They're going to the richest people. And the poor people are being left out because we are not bringing enough homes to market, okay, to supply the demand at the top so there's plenty of supply at the bottom. It literally trickles down. The more housing we build, period, the more housing there is for everybody. But unfortunately, we're not in that position because we've allowed ourselves to listen to some very, 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 very evil people. That's how I look at them. And
Does
people
Dan Ryan understand that? Does Dan Ryan understand that, Fred?
I think, I had a good talk with Dan about that during the campaign. I haven't talked to him since the campaign. I think Dan has a good grasp. He grew up in Portland. He grew up in Roosevelt. He seems like a guy that asks good questions. He hasn't talked to me about it, but I'm not the only one that knows this. There's other people out there talking about it. And the problem is, we got a bunch of wealth haters that like to, take up space, and we can't trust our media. We have the most horrible community of journalists in the country, period.
Fred, can I ask you a question?
They don't tell the truth. They're a bunch of liars, racist as hell, okay? And the only good thing is those journalists eventually are going to be held accountable, and they don't be able to call 911, if you know what I mean.
Fred, you say we have a lot of wealth haters in the Tri-County area.
We do.
If they are hating wealth so much, why are houses so high?
Because of the people who are moving here. It's the people who are moving here that's causing the values to go up. Okay?
Because they're leaving high price areas.
And those people, the people who are moving here aren't wealth haters. These are usually people who either have been here for, let's say, 5 or 10 years, They don't want more people moving here. They've got some sort of romanticized vision of what Portland is about, and they want to keep it. You know, they're anarchists and stuff. They're just a bunch of low-life people that, you know, like I said, you know, I told one of them, you know, back in the 1956 election, 4 or 5 of you guys just disappeared. We had an anarchist issue, what's called revolt or uprising during the 56 election. And for some reason, nobody saw them in 57. I wonder why. You know what I'm talking about? They just disappeared. They popped up, caused a bunch of muck like they've been allowed to cause here lately, here in the market. And then by 57, maybe we should ask, well, he's gone now, you know, then former Mayor Ivan, see whatever happened to him. But what I'm getting to is we had a lot of BS getting in the way, and we've got a lot of very poor housing policy because of it. And that has made developing housing so expensive. Look around. There's not a lot of housing being built. I mean, we got more housing being built in Happy Valley than anywhere else. And Happy Valley is only building 10% of the houses they were building 10 years ago. You understand? So that shows you how bad things have gotten. So the people
the reason they're not building houses out here now is the congestion is in the 10 years that from the time I moved from 82nd Drive up here on Sunnyside, they have put in so many houses and so many apartments until they had to say, wait a minute, we can't service these people. They have to go to Portland in order to be serviced. So what do? They start taking some of that land and building and making it for business.
I'm very in tune with the planning departments of all the major cities in the Northwest. That's not the issue going on out there with Happy Valley. That's not the issue at all. I'm just telling you, I know what the issues are, and I know what the housing people out there are is not what they're working on and not what they're concerned about. They've got very big capacity. Their last capacity study, which was done by the University of Oregon, basically said Happy Valley could double. You've got a lot of capacity out there. But
who wants to sell? The people that moved in the Clackamas in the beginning moved here to get away from city life. And that's why they have these large plots out here.
Well, Bob, they got to remember these people are getting older. We understand that. You and I are older, and they're going to be moving out, and they got to sell those houses to somebody. And a lot of people that are like that, they just are worried about the values of their property not maximizing. But the truth is, Bob, no matter how we slice it, we are on a bullseye to be a 6 million person market by the year 2060. That's just 30 years from now. 40 years from now. 40 years from now, there's going to be 6 million people in this market. That means we got to build a lot more housing, a ton more housing. We're going to have over 1 million people in Vancouver, Washington. Right now, we're at about 350, 400,000. We're going to have 1 million people just in Vancouver. I'm not talking about Clark County. I'm talking about Vancouver. Okay? We've got to understand that no matter what you have bought in there for, it's just for you while you're there. The future is going to be different.
So in a market, buying a home that's close to 400,000, 15 years ago, today that home is somewhere in close to 7.
Yeah, it depends on what zip code you're in. I'll say the bottom end, $400,000 home, let's say in 2015, is probably at least a $650,000 home today or close to it.
Well, in 2000,
in some cases they're over 1 million.
2004.
Yeah, I saw a house on 117th off of Halsey. It was bought in 2015 for $350,000. My clients offered $750,000. We were one of 20 offers, and we weren't the highest offer at $750,000. Okay. Yeah. So no, I mean, you gotta remember we're in a low interest rate environment. The market's gonna drop a little bit when interest rates start going up, which might not be for another 2 or 3 years. Right. It might not be. But the thing is, right now, $400,000 house, that's what? 2% of that is what, $8,000? divide 8,000 in interest and another. Let's add another 4,000 for principal payment. So $12,000 over a 12-month period. That's $1,000 a month. Add property taxes. That'll probably be another $400 a month. Insurances, mortgage insurances. So top end $1,800 a month. You've got a $400,000 house.
Okay, guys, I think we've spent enough on the real estate piece aspect of it. I want to get back in the homeless piece a bit. We're going to let Dwight get back into the game and see if we got some questions for Dwight and the rest of us in regards to some of the things that he's having to deal with, because we want to make sure we educate those city commissioners as to what their job is. Now, Dan has opened up the door for it, because Dan has said, basically, Dan had this session, from what I read from Street Roots, that he had the session at the city council aspect of it. And he forced the mayor, if you will, to support him on making sure that that discussion, it will be held among the city commissioners, even though he's the kind of the chairperson. And it's my understanding he's looking at the possibility of putting together this committee and looking for folks to be on this special kind of a committee aspect of it. So that's a kind of interesting piece. We just want to make sure they've got enough informational background, if you will, so it'll help him, i.e., and hopefully get the public to react to it, and react by calling up the mayor and the various commissioners to tell them this is the right direction or whatever. And I think if they even want to join, if they want to be a part of that committee, they can. So Fred, yourself, or whether it be Bob or whomever.
I would love to, but I don't have the time for it, guys.
Okay, I got you. But then Dwight,
I'm about to launch Vanport Escrow and Title.
Okay, all right. There you go. I got you. All I'm saying is that he's going to make it public as opposed to the behind the door. Because behind the door right now, my point is that we don't even know where the money's going. And Dwight made that very, very clear about the fact that these folks are not, he can't see the money.
Dwight, are you going to be on that committee?
So I'm going to give Dwight the opportunity now to chat a little bit about that.
And what was the question again? There was a question that was posed by Fred.
Well, actually, we were talking about
I was just asking, are you going to be on that committee?
I would love to be if I could find out how to access it. Yeah.
Call Dan. Call his office. And volunteer.
Yes, sir.
Get on that committee.
Yes, sir.
And tell your other counterparts. Well, now, one thing that Dwight and we talked a little bit about this piece, and the fact of the matter is that Dwight is thinking about the possibility of leading a group, if you will, of trying to get the other social entities, the nonprofits, and some of the things that they're doing as far as services, and putting them under one roof and and then basically go to Dan that way. What do you think?
I mean, we got so many groups. I mean, I'm never going to tell anybody not to get together a group, but, I don't think you need a group. What we just need is leadership. So get on that committee and be aggressive. You know what I'm talking about? So, Dwight, if you want to get involved, jump on that committee that Dan's created,
Yes.
And, if you want, my advice is open up a Twitter account, open up a YouTube channel, and give reports.
Okay.
Give reports. Right. Let people know what's going on. Let people know how you feel.
Okay. Respectfully, Fred, what we were talking about, the different services. See, he doesn't identify with all the services. I mean, he's got a specific task when he's doing his thing. There are other entities that have specific tasks. He can't do the whole thing by himself. See, so the whole idea was that he was going to identify those individuals that he see on an everyday deal that's actually doing a specific task. You see what I'm saying? That's all, and alert them. And that's why the idea is that he like you said, maybe they too should
that's the best way to go. I'm just saying that's an awful lot of effort.
No, but all I'm just trying to say, he sees these people every day. That's all I'm just saying. Got me? So that's all I'm saying. We're right on the same. We're on the same note. No problem. It's just that I like the idea, but we need this community. But I want him to talk. You've been hearing these deals about real estate and this, that, and the other. Right? Bob has a couple of questions he wants to ask anyway. Hold on, Dwight.
Yeah, because I was looking at a piece of property that I was thinking, but I heard in the background that I heard Fred saying he was on some Vanport type of project that he was talking about being busy on. But I was looking at that property there, that old Safeway that's sitting there at the old Vanport station, and thinking about trying to find a way to do a Vanport shelter someplace right in
between. It's not a bad idea. I don't know who owns it. I mean, it could be Safeway still owns it. The reason why Safeway took off from there is because, they made an arrangement to shut down because of the new bridge that never happened. And I don't know I don't know what the machinations are about all of that. But that wouldn't be a bad idea to go down there. It still comes down to, Dwight, heavy management. They already have a significant problem with homeless people committing crimes on the island. So you're going to have to work with people down there. There is a significant criminal element in the homeless population, period.
Yes, sir.
We don't have the cops or the DA that deals with it. We've got a significant amount of sex offenders who are in that population in this market simply because it's nationally known. We don't have very many cops. We're known to not be aggressive. You understand, about sex offenders, about resident sex offenders. So a lot of them will gravitate around to this market because they've told me to my face they feel safer. Cops leave you alone. You know what I mean? If you're in other markets, they get beat up or they have other problems because they're registered sex offenders. But what I'm getting to is that's an issue that they're dealing with already on the island. You're gonna have to have enough resources to deal with it. Okay, that's becoming a very expensive piece of property. That island, very expensive.
With all due respect, if you're talking about Dancing Beach, that property is gone. They've already got the developer. They've got the outline in terms of what's going to be placed on it and in the process of building.
Yeah. You would know more about it than I do. I mean, there's a chance you could possibly.
You're right.
I don't know what to do with zoo pans over there, but you might be able to do something with zoo pans.
Yeah. Okay, Bob. You want to put on, Bob? What's up?
Well, I just wanted to say that the mayor and city of Portland has a group together called the navigation team. I don't know if you guys know anything about that.
What is it?
The navigation team. Here's what he said. I'm just going to read it to you. The navigation team is a vital piece of solving the housing crisis in our city. It's focused on making a service-first approach to high-impact campsites. So Dwight needs to know about this sucker because they're about to come in and do what they were going to do on 205, which is clear the campsites. So they were getting ready to do that. What stopped them was the weather. So you need to find out more about that group, because who's on it, what's going on, what is their intention? Because they're talking a little bit about housing, but they say before we do housing, we got to educate the people.
That's right.
I hadn't read this before we started this, but while you all was going, I was reading this. And, things don't come to the Black community. It comes around it. And eventually somebody leaks it in. And we have to be a group that goes out and find out the information and get it to disseminate it among the troops. So we
only one thing Black people should be doing with real estate right now, and that's buying. No, we've got still too many knuckleheads in the Black community holding people back from either just being full of bullshit or they've got such a long criminal record they can't do anything. No, the people who can buy, the Black people can buy and buy anywhere. I don't care where it's at. Buy. Just make sure you can afford what you buy. Work with your family. Work with your brothers, your sisters, your sons, your daughters, your aunts and uncles. Work with your nieces and nephews. As a family, try to buy. Don't wait for anything, any group or nothing. The group you work for is yourself. Hurry up. We don't know how long this low interest rate environment is going to last. Some people feel it lasts as long as 2023. Some people say it's going to go till 2024. I've read stuff where people say it's over with next year. When I tell people, it depends on how bad inflation gets, because we are going to go through an inflationary period. Don't know when it's going to hit, but it's going to hit. I don't know. All I know is here right now. Okay? Deal with right now for sure. We don't have enough time to build coalitions and stuff. Just get out there, buy duplexes, threeplexes, fourplexes, single families. Just don't buy more than you can afford.
There you go. That's the key.
Well, see, but I agree with you, Fred. on housing and all that, for Dwight, I'm talking about the homeless. And the homeless can't buy nothing. You know, therefore, somebody is going to they're not going to allow them to stay in a park for the people much longer. They're going to start moving these people.
Yes,
And
sir.
we got to be at the forefront of this rather than on the tail end trying to get in after the barn door is closed. That's all I'm saying.
No, I know. And but unfortunately, like I said before, the complicating thing with the homeless people right now is that is an incredibly diverse population. And there are some serious threats to management, to community, everything that you got to deal with them. And unfortunately, we got people who, like our current DA, we got criminals we got to deal with. We got people who are just old. We've got old people who are disabled, and they need care. They need not just a space above their head. They need something that allows them to be in their wheelchair. They need something that is ADA ready. You understand? They need something more than just space. You understand? And that's why this whole thing about educating the people is, I believe in education. The way I approach real estate, I try to educate people. But we got a space issue. And we got to solve that space issue, or people are going to keep living on the ground. That's just how it is. We got a space problem. And our policies that we've got right now has made it so expensive to build housing. The only people who are getting housing right now are the wealthiest people in the market. Period. The top 15, 20% of the market is getting the new housing. And we're not building that much. You know how good Portland is about housing? We've got a building that has about 200 units in it, and only 50 units are rented. 150 are vacant. And they've got a schedule of just renting 5 units a month. We are so predictable in how our growth is that the investors, they're not even in a hurry to rent it out. You understand? They're treating it like a bond. You understand? So they're going to get it all rented out. But they have got a schedule to have it all rented out, let's say a year from now. And they're looking at their growth in rents and how the new leases are going to be increased and everything. So what I'm getting to is that is how tight the housing market is. We need more housing, period. More spaces being delivered. Because if you saw that happen, you would see rents stagnate first, like they did about 30 years ago back in the mid-90s. You would see them stagnate first, and then you might see them drop down a little bit. But right now, I'm telling everybody we're going to get 7 to 8% growth in rents for at least the next 3 or 4 years.
Okay, let's go at another discussion for a minute. Let's talk about the whole issue of protesting, and let's talk about another piece of the pie discussed on the city council, that is public safety. The whole issue of public safety aspect of it, and in that particular lane falls into someone we know dearly, and that's we talking about Joanne Hardesty. Okay, got me. She doesn't have the votes now. She's there alone, if you will, but at the same time, public safety is still in existence. And as you note, our dear friend Ted Wheeler is being approached with another possibility of another recall. They want organizing another recall, if you will. Then the guy's not doing the job. And, in all due respect, that's kind of one of the problems I've always looked at when I ran for office. The fact a lot of these people don't have resumes. They have no resumes that indicate that they've got some background in doing whatever, whether it be a policeman or whatever. But I'm just throwing that out. Let's talk about public safety for a moment. We still have a major problem. We got a national platform, as you say, Fred. For anybody coming in this area, you can do anything you want to from the standpoint of public safety. Talk about it. What about it, Fred? Start off right away. Should Joanne Hardesty take the lead?
Joanne Hardesty can't take the lead because law enforcement community nationally isn't going to trust her. And Joanne is not the right type. I'm not throwing her under the bus, but Joanne's not a protector. She is not. We've got fewer cops right now with badges on them than we did 50 years ago. And that was back when Portland stopped at 82nd. Okay, now it goes up sometimes to 181st. In other words, we got a bigger city with 4 times the population, and we've got fewer cops than we had in 1970. And
What do we do? What do we do?
Well, we got to hire more cops. We got to recruit, and we need a city commissioner that can recruit.
Like who?
Well, it's not going to be Joanne. I don't know. Maybe they're going to have to see if Carmen can do it. Dan Ryan, maybe. You know, I mean, the mayor, maybe he's going to have to raise up his game. I don't care who does it. I don't think Joanne is the type that's going to be able to get it done. Not from that community.
Why?
Isn't
it about the vote? I mean, isn't it about the vote? I mean, I remember she worked hard to get us 3.
You may get voted out. I'm going to tell everybody, tell you right out of the bat, we may have enough people killed this summer and next summer to where nobody's going to want to talk to somebody like Joanne. We have got a problem with law enforcement because we're going to lose this month about 100 Portland cops. About 100. Okay? That means 100 fewer cops than we had February 1st. That means, ready for this, close to 200 fewer cops than we had this time last year. All right? And we are not really recruiting that many. We might bring on 20 cops this year, if we're lucky. Okay? Those are rookies.
What about the leadership? You said leadership.
The leadership has to recruit. And the leadership has to have policies that will make people feel they can be cops. We literally right now got criminals who feel they run the streets.
Right.
And I tell everybody, you feel safe right now because it hasn't happened to you.
Who on the city council can take the lead? Now you mentioned Dan, he just vandalized his home. So
Joanne can't. I know she can't. I mean, she would want to. Ted could, but he hasn't done so far. They're gonna have to go outside the box. Give Dan or Carmen or what's her name? Dan or Carmen, the way they call it, Mingus. Maybe Mingus. Give him. But whoever does is gonna have to step up to the plate. But before they even get there, we need the policies in law enforcement.
You just passed policies that say you don't go to jail for having drugs. You just took the police out of all of this stuff.
Well, I don't care about that. Hold on, Bob. That's not violent crime.
Why wouldn't that be as a drug?
Bob, that's not violent crime. Bob, that's not violent crime. I don't care about somebody with a drug. But you know what I care about? Breaking and entering, stealing cars, rape, murder, assault.
We haven't heard about stealing the car for 20 years.
We don't have enough cops to investigate those 5 crimes that I just mentioned to you. I don't care about somebody
stealing a car in Portland in 20 years.
20
years. When I was living in Portland, they changed the law on that. Became a secondary or third crime. Still going after someone that stole a car.
Bob, there's a big difference in 1980 something when they made that change you're talking about, and now. The big difference is the violence that goes along with it. I don't want anybody to steal a car. Sure as hell don't want mine stolen. But you know what else I don't like, Bob?
Doing drugs.
What you're forgetting is
minimum amount of drugs.
We've got all these carjackings from violent offenders.
All right, buddy. We got it. Okay, look like we got a buddy program right now as far as police recruitment. So you and Bob can kind of get together and then hold hands and be cops tomorrow. You guys still of age. Okay,
this has
been a great show.
I'd shoot so many people.
This has been a great show.
I'd be shooting so many people.
Gentlemen, this has been a great
movie about
show. Right, thank you very much, my friend. Fred, thank you. Bob, good job. And by the way, we'll see you next week. We'll have another good show. As you can see, we're still going. Those twins are going at it again.
Yeah. See you online, Fred.
All right, see you online.
Have a good one, folks. Have a good one. Enjoy. Just tell your friends and tune in Sunday and on YouTube. Take care.
4 o'clock Sunday.